Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Kurt on Cougs. Tonight we're previewing the matchup between BYU and their rival, the Utah Utes. Huge game tonight, honestly one of the biggest of the season, one of the best rivalries in college football. Let's go. Super exciting. I just want to start this episode with one preface. I don't know, both in this video and in the post-game video. Hopefully talking about a victory by then. But I will be, of course, I have pretty strong feelings on this rivalry. I love BYU. I love beating Utah. I hate losing this game. But I just want to make it very clear, I do not hate the University of Utah in any way. I hate them in a sports way, as in I hate losing to them, hate being worse than them, love beating them, love being better than them. Definitely a game I care a lot about, but ultimately in the end of the day, no real hate or anything towards the Utes. All right, so with that set out, first of all, taking a look all around BYU athletics, BYU men's and women's cross country will be competing in the NCAA regionals next Friday, so that's going to be pretty big. BYU women's soccer most likely going to be playing in the tournament even after that loss to TCU in the quarterfinals. And so, so things right now looking pretty good for the Cougars there. They're waiting for their tournament seed. BYU women's volleyball yesterday got swept by Utah. Not a fun one there, but the season goes on. Still a lot to play for. And then, of course, men's and women's basketball have both kicked off this week. Both of them starting 2-0. With the men winning earlier this week against Central Arkansas, winning that game by 38, and then they won yesterday by 6 against UC Irvine. Jaeger Demon is so far looking to be up to all the hype that he's been given. Cannon Catching's also showing out really well, and things are looking good for the men. As for the women, they beat Idaho by 5 on, I think it was Wednesday was their game. And then earlier today, they won by 13 against Wyoming. So both teams undefeated. In my opinion, I think both teams have a pretty good shot to make the tournament. So this should be a very exciting year. And so then, of course, taking a look around college football, there have been some big upsets today, some crazy stuff. And little side note, earlier this week, I filmed a video kind of reacting to the college football playoff rankings reveal, kind of just talking about what BYU needs to do moving forward to make it into the Big 12 championship game and all that, the playoffs. And unfortunately, I have yet to release it yet. I will probably release it sometime after tonight's game. Of course, we'll have more information then, so it'll be a little outdated, but I'll send that out then. Definitely some games that impacted BYU today. Some big upsets. For one thing, good news, Miami losing to Georgia Tech. That's an unranked 4-loss Georgia Tech team, and so, big news for BYU. I think Cougs definitely jump them if they get a win tonight, and so that could be really good. Also, you got an upset that I'm a little less excited about was Ole Miss beating Georgia, and here's why. In my opinion, I think either way, Georgia's most likely going to make the playoffs. Georgia's a really good team. I don't see them losing another game the rest of the way. While Ole Miss was a team with 2 losses at number 16, in my opinion, one more loss would have knocked them out. One less team for BYU to contend for, but now they are very strongly in the mix. And so, definitely not feeling the greatest about that, but it all goes on. Cougs ultimately in control of their own destiny for the time being, so just got to keep it that way. And then also around the Big 12, you got some crazy stuff happening. Iowa State lost for the second week in a row to Kansas. What is this? That one surprised me so much. Kansas of all teams is the team that gives the Cyclones their second loss. In the meantime, Colorado, despite being down early, they come back, they win their game. I don't remember exactly who they were playing against. But the Iowa State loss, definitely good news for BYU. For the Big 12 as a whole, not really. Maybe making the conference seem a little weaker, making it less likely they get 2 bids to the playoffs. But overall, helps BYU's case at least to make the conference title game, because now with that officially, of course, Cougars in the lead right now, undefeated in conference play. The only way they would miss out is, losing 2 or more games. And even if they were to lose 2 games, which honestly, in my opinion, I wouldn't predict them to go undefeated, but I would only predict 1 loss of these last 4 games, hopefully not tonight. And so, yeah. So, but at this point, even with 2 losses, the only way they would miss out on the conference title game is if Iowa State wins out, which would include beating a very good Kansas State team. Because BYU has the tiebreaker over Kansas State, and even if, Colorado were to get ahead of them with their only 1 loss so far, Cougs would make it in if it comes down to a 1-loss Colorado, 2-loss BYU, 2-loss Kansas State, and 3-loss Iowa State, BYU's in. And so, of course, though, we're hoping undefeated, but, scenarios are working out just in case. Okay, so now getting specifically to tonight's matchup. Huge game. In my opinion, one of the biggest of the year. Now, you might say, Utah comes in, they're 4-4. You're playing a 4-4 team on the road, conference game. Like, that's big, but is it really that big? And yes, the answer is yes. This is the holy war game. This is huge. This is, playing for the title of dominance in the state of Utah, at least for this season. And in my opinion, I feel like this is BYU's first chance to, be playing for something like that in a while. Because even the last time BYU beat Utah back in 2021, still, at the end of the season, that's a Utah team that wins the Pac-12, goes to the Rose Bowl. And so, in the, trash talk going on, Facebook, Twitter, all of that, you could definitely see Utah fans, whenever a BYU fan would bring up their win earlier in the season, you'd see Utah fans bringing up that Utah had the more successful season, went to a more prestigious bowl, et cetera, et cetera. But with a BYU win tonight, that would be total in-state dominance, at least for the year. Being able to say you have the win and you have the better season. Let's go. Now, some important things to watch in this game. Of course, Utah's offense recently been struggling a lot. They do not score well in the red zone. They do not pass well. Right now, their strength is their run game, which we saw last game. BYU was very successful at limiting the run game against UCF. And so hopefully they keep that up tonight. Utah looking to turn their season around, looking to give themselves a better chance to make a bowl game. BYU looking to stay on path for the college football playoffs and the Big 12. I don't think a loss would knock them out of either of those, but it would definitely damage their chances. And so, huge game tonight, a lot on the line. And so I'm going to just jump straight to deciding factors. Number 1, I said this all year, before many games, but this game especially, if you look at the history of the rivalry and everything, it's got to be turnovers. You got to win that turnover battle, especially since, in my opinion, in this game, you are by far the superior team. By far this superior team, by far, the favorite team. And, this is a game you should win, but one of the easiest ways that Utah can get in this game is by forcing BYU mistakes. And so got to hold on to the ball, got to force some turnovers. Those are both going to be important. And then number 2, I'm going to say they need to win the battle in the red zone, both on offense and on defense. That's going to be very important. You got to put points on the board. This Utah team is not capable of scoring a lot. And so scoring at touchdowns instead of field goals will go a long way. As well as, for Utah, they've really struggled in the red zone. So got to keep that trend going. Can't let them score too much. Got to get some stops in the red zone. So that's going to be important. And my last deciding factor for tonight's game is you got to be able to run the ball. I believe this is going to be very important tonight. BYU's passing attack has been really successful this year, but this Utah defense, despite not having a year as good as some of their past ones, still is, very talented. And so, you got to hold on to the football. And so, let's go. And then my bold prediction for tonight's game is I believe BYU will outscore Utah in points off of turnovers by double digits. And the reason this would be surprising, Utah has had a history in the past of scoring defensive touchdowns against BYU. That's kind of been their thing in this rivalry. But I think tonight BYU goes out there and they outscore the Utes by a decent margin in points off of turnovers. Cougars are going to get those turnovers and they're going to make them count. Let's go. And so now for my prediction for tonight's game. I'm very, very excited for this. And first, just a little preview. Big game. Definitely a game the Cougars can lose. Definitely a game they should win. A lot on the line. Ultimately, a lot of the country's asking, is this BYU team for real? Many are ready to say, nah, they ain't if they lose this game. So, got to prove the doubters wrong. Got to put up a solid performance and get a win. And so, yeah. And also, in my opinion, this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I feel like this is a revenge game more for BYU than it is for Utah. Now, I know BYU has the most recent win, but still, that was preceded by 9 straight years of losing to the Utes. And so, in my opinion, BYU is still on the revenge trail. It's time for the Cougs to, get out there, get a second straight win, put more distance between that and the losing streak of the past. Start to build a winning streak of your own. Yeah, it's time for some revenge. And I think the Cougs get that revenge tonight, getting their first win in Rice Eccles since 2006. Let's go. Yeah, and I know this is kind of a new hat. It's one of my favorites. It's one that I actually wore back in 2016 or 2017? It was one of those years when BYU upset number 1 Gonzaga last game of the season. Bet a lot of y'all remember it. But yeah, hopefully it'll have its same... Oh, I wore it backwards. Okay. Hopefully it'll have its same magic tonight. Very excited. Let's go Cougs.